I worked 3 jobs just to help Lila get through university. For years, my life was a cycle of early mornings, late nights, and constant tiredness, all driven by the hope that she would succeed. When she finally graduated, that dream came true in a way I never expected. Her wealthy family, who had lost contact with her for years, found her again. Suddenly, she wasn't the same girl I used to live with in our tiny apartment in Havenbrook. She was part of a rich, high-status world. Everyone started congratulating me, saying my struggles were finally over, and that I was about to become a lucky man, a rich family's son-in-law. But even with all the praise, I felt something wrong deep inside me. One evening we stood in the large new apartment her family gave her in Silvercrest Heights, and the silence between us felt heavy. I looked at her, elegant and beautiful, wearing clothes I could never afford, and before I knew it, the words slipped out, "Should we break up?" She froze. Her smile twitched, then returned, but it looked fake and forced. "What are you talking about?" she said, trying to laugh it off. But I noticed the fear in her eyes, that pause that told me everything I didn't want to believe. I gave her a calm smile, but it felt empty. "It's okay," I whispered. "You don't need to feel stuck because of me. I'll go." That night, I quietly packed a small bag and walked away from the apartment, leaving behind 3 years of memories we had created together. I didn't ask her out of the blue. Just moments earlier, I had overheard her talking to a friend from high school on the phone. The friend said, "Your life is like a comeback story now. Even Damien would have to notice you. Remember how you chased him all through high school and he ignored you? This must feel great." Then there was a pause. The friend asked, "I heard your family wants you to date him now, but what about your boyfriend, the delivery guy?" Lila replied in a calm, almost careless tone, "I've been meaning to break up with him for a while. We just don't work anymore. It'll end on its own." It hit me hard. Was that why? Her family wouldn't accept someone like me, a delivery guy. Was I just someone she was holding on to until something better came along? To her, I wasn't the man who loved her. I was just a temporary stop, someone easy to let go. It hurt, especially since just days earlier, she held me close and talked about the life we'd built together. I truly thought I knew her. I had worked myself to the bone, skipped meals, and pushed through every bit of exhaustion just to pay her tuition and cover her living costs. My friends had warned me it wasn't worth it. I didn't realize I was walking straight into heartbreak. Whenever people warned me, I'd defend Lila without hesitation, insisting she wasn't like that. But reality hit me hard. Everything I did, every sacrifice I made meant nothing. It was all one-sided. To her, my love became a burden. If she didn't love me, why didn't she just tell me? Why did she look at me with those sweet, loving eyes and say she couldn't live without me? She made me believe we felt the same way. But she never truly loved me, and, deep down, I think I always knew. Back in high school, everyone knew she was obsessed with Damien. I was just the quiet one watching from the sidelines. Lila came from a poor family, always wearing the same worn-out school uniform. But somehow, she'd still buy Damien expensive gifts, limited edition music boxes, and concert tickets that were impossible to get. But to Damien, who already had everything, those gifts meant nothing. He barely said thanks. Someone else always gave him something better. He treated Lila like his servant, ordering her around, crushing her pride again and again. And she let him. She kept following him like a lost puppy. I'm not even sure when I fell for her. Maybe it was seeing her slowly break, the light in her eyes fading with each time Damien rejected her. She was so broken, and yet, so sincere. She was trying so hard to protect her fragile heart, even as she struggled to hold herself together. Watching her in pain made me want nothing more than to comfort her. One day I couldn't take it anymore. I begged Damien to just turn around and see the girl who had always stood behind him like his shadow. But he only scoffed and called me foolish. Things went downhill fast. Damien was falsely accused of something serious at school, and in a misguided attempt to defend him, Lila lashed out. She ended up seriously hurting a few students. The school punished her harshly, leaving her with a permanent disciplinary record. The worst part, Damien, the boy she had done it all for, ever stood up for her. He and his family just left the country, abandoning her to deal with everything alone. Lila had been accepted into a great college, but after the incident, her offer was revoked. She completely shut down, isolating herself from everyone. When I visited, she would scream at me, throw things, and demand I leave. Once, a glass shattered at my feet, but I didn't move. I stayed by her side. It wasn't until a shard cut my leg and blood began dripping down that she finally stopped. She handed me a bandage with no emotion in her voice. "Go, don't waste your time on me," she said quietly. "I'm nobody now, just leave me alone." She was spiraling, and I was terrified she'd hurt herself. So I began bringing her food every single day, no matter the weather. Her foster mother called me, her voice sharp with anger. Lila was in the hospital. She had tried to end her life by cutting her wrists. When I arrived, I overheard her foster mother scolding her cruelly. "If you want to die, go do it somewhere else. Don't bring your bad luck into my home. I adopted you thinking you'd be smart and take care of me one day, but all you've ever been is a disappointment." I couldn't take another second of it. I burst into the room, grabbed Lila by the collar of her hospital gown, and shouted, "Lila, pull yourself together. Do you think life is easy for anyone? So you got rejected from college, so what? That doesn't mean you give up. Try again. Fight back. You're stronger than this." I didn't hold back. My words were harsh on purpose. I had always treated her gently, afraid of saying the wrong thing. But right then, seeing her so broken, I knew softness wouldn't reach her. She looked at me, shocked, her eyes red and wide. For someone like her who had come from nothing, her academic achievements were all she had. I calmed my voice, gently wiped away a tear from her cheek, and said, "You're too smart to let this destroy you. Get through this, and things will get better." I don't even know where the courage came from, but I took her out of that toxic house and moved her into a tiny apartment with me. I was never a top student myself, but after junior college, my family expected me to start working. They sent me $5,000 and told me to make something of myself. When Lila saw how hard I was struggling just to get by, she offered to drop out of school. I stopped her right away and said, "Just focus on your studies. Let me and Aunt Sarah handle the rest." That was the beginning of the toughest years of my life. I washed dishes during the day, delivered food at night, and passed out flyers whenever I had a spare moment. It was just barely enough to cover our rent and her school books. Once, trying to earn extra for her new textbooks, I took on too many night shifts and collapsed from exhaustion by the side of a bridge. When I got home, legs bandaged, Lila's eyes filled with tears, I smiled and told her I wasn't in pain, but she hugged me tightly, called me a fool, and said I was her whole world. She promised that someday we'd build a good life together. And we did, at least. She did. With her intelligence and my support, she got into a top university. That's when her family came back into the picture. They found out about everything I'd done for her and handed me a bank card with an 8-digit balance. I was stunned. I never helped Lila for money. She always told me we'd build a good life, but I never expected riches. Just being with her was the good life. That bank card didn't feel like a reward. It felt like a way to push me aside. My friends said my tough times were finally over, but deep down, I knew that wasn't true. A wealthy family like hers would never allow their daughter to marry someone like me, a poor delivery boy. They'd want her to be with someone who came from the same background. Someone like Damien. Lila had always admired Damien. Maybe what she felt for me was never love, just gratitude. Ever since she started college, our conversations began to fade. She talked about complex theories I didn't understand, and my stories about working long shifts delivering food didn't seem to interest her anymore. She stopped calling me as often. I've always felt insecure, and to me, she was this brilliant, glowing star, now surrounded by smart, attractive guys at her university. I was scared she'd leave me. Our biggest argument happened when I took her to a jewelry store and told her I wanted to buy her an engagement ring. I promised I'd marry her right after she graduated, but she hesitated. Then she awkwardly pulled out a ring she had already bought. I instantly knew it wasn't meant for me, but I lied to myself. I let her slip it onto my finger. It was tight, uncomfortable. Looking at her, wanting nothing but the truth, I asked, "Tell me honestly, do you want to break up?" Her fake smile disappeared. She didn't say a word. I laughed bitterly at my own desperation. What was I even holding on to? I had known the truth all along, but I kept pretending. And now, The ring on my finger, her ring, was proof of a love that was never really mine. I turned away, pretending everything was fine, and started watering the champagne roses on the balcony, the ones we had planted together, after I saw in a flower shop that they symbolized devoted to you alone. She came up behind me and gently wrapped her arms around my waist. "Ethan," she whispered, "you'll always mean the most to me." Tears rushed to my eyes. They say eyes can hold the world, but somehow, they can't hold back a few tears. I kept my back to her, quickly wiping them away so she wouldn't see. "What about Damien?" I asked suddenly. She went quiet. I set down the watering can and faced her, struggling to pull off the ring that felt too tight now. Pushing it on had hurt, but taking it off was a different kind of pain, a deep final sting. I placed it in her hand. "Here, it's yours," I said, glancing at the red mark it left on my skin. "Sorry, I think I stretched it." She opened her mouth to respond, but I didn't want to hear any more. Right then, the door swung open. A few of her college friends burst in laughing, saying they'd been knocking forever and assumed we were busy. They came with news. A paper Lila had written had just won a prestigious award. Lila's friends were kind and well-mannered. They all knew about me and had respected everything I did for her over the past 3 years. One of them gently tapped her shoulder and said, "You really made it, Lila. All of Ethan's efforts weren't wasted." Lila looked at me awkwardly and muttered, "Yeah, thanks to Ethan." Her friends encouraged me to join them on the upcoming award trip out of town. One of them even said excitedly, "Ethan's heroic story is definitely going viral." But I could tell Lila didn't really want me there, so I politely turned down the invitation. One of her friends looked confused and asked, "What do you mean, Ethan?" "We're honestly impressed. I've never seen a guy work 3 jobs just to support his girlfriend through college." Lila added quickly, "Come with us, it'll be a fun trip with good friends." But just then, another friend who was never the quiet type suddenly snapped, "Good friends? Really, Lila? I heard your parents set you up with Damien again. Your old high school boyfriend. The one who caused all that drama." Lila stayed silent, and the room broke into chaos. "Are you out of your mind?" someone shouted. "You'd leave an amazing guy like Ethan for him." "If you betray Ethan, I'll slap you myself," another friend threatened. One friend gently patted my arm and said, "Don't worry, Ethan. We'll keep her in line. She wouldn't dare hurt you." I gave a small, forced smile. The conversation quickly turned to academic stuff full of complicated words I couldn't understand. Maybe Lila and I were never truly meant for each other. I got up and walked into the bedroom, a place full of our memories. I remembered when we lived in a cheap, damp basement apartment in Havenbrook. During cold winter nights, rain would leak through the walls and soak Lila's back while she slept. I told her I'd break up with her unless she switched places with me. I remember lying there freezing, while she held on to me and whispered that she'd never marry anyone else but me.